Full Scope, a podcast with two guys in their 20s giving their perspective on the games that we love, headlines of pop culture, and the meaning behind it all. I'm host Windsor Burns, and my counterpart Savon Morris was not able to be on for this one, but I'm joined by a special guest, Ally Henny. She was on for a past episode, Vice President of the Witness BCC and host of Homing the Roots podcast. Also has a book coming up in June, I believe. I call it I Won't Shut Up, Finding Your Voice When the World Tries to Silence You. Ally, thank you so much for being on this episode.
Thank you for having me on. It's so exciting to be on here with you, Wellington. I really appreciate y'all having me back on again.
No problem. And for this episode, we're going to do an exclusive review of Creed 3. And me and Ally talked about it before. This will be filled with spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, pause it and go watch it first. But to start off with the overview, Creed 3 is a sports drama film directed by and starring Michael B. Jordan in his feature directorial debut from a screenplay by Keenan Coogler and Zach Baylin. This is the third film in the Creed series and also the overall ninth in the Rocky film series, also starring Tessa Thompson, Jonathan Majors, Wood Harris, Florin Montano, and Felicia Rashad. It's also the first in the series without Sylvester Stallone. Had a budget of $75 million and brought in $105.8 million into the box office. And has an 88% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. So you, Ally, to start it off, like, what were your initial thoughts on a film that kind of like took a different storyline and, you know, really had the characters evolve and grow throughout in it?
So I absolutely love it. I will probably say this multiple times throughout this, but I am a huge Rocky fan. I actually started watching Rocky because I wanted to see Creed 2 whenever Creed 2 came out. I hadn't seen any of the Creed movies. I grew up with Rocky. Like, I grew up with that. I'm old enough to remember when, like, the movies, when some of them, not all of them, just Rocky 5. Yeah. I remember
Rocky 5, the worst one.
That one gets a bad. I'm going to hold my tongue, but that one gets a bad. Rocky 5 gets such a bad rap. Okay. But I remember whenever Rocky 5 came out, and then of course like Rocky 4 was always like on cable and stuff. Yeah. And then of course the other 3 movies, it was always kind of an event at my house. You know, it would be on. So I kind of grew up with it. Grew up with it kind of in the background and was like broadly aware of what the story was, but I didn't really actually like sit down to watch Rocky until Creed 2 came out. And actually I'd heard an interview that your brother Tyler did with Michael B. Jordan a few years ago, and so he was talking about it, so I was like, okay, I guess I'll jump in here.
Gotta get into it.
and get into this. Yeah. And so I watched all the other movies so I could watch Creed 2. And so then every year since then, sometimes even multiple times a year, I've watched all the Rocky movies through, have seen them, have analyzed them, and all that. So all that to say, coming into Creed 3, I definitely I wasn't sure what to expect. Right. I wasn't sure what the story was going to be like, but I was even actually surprised that there was going to be a Creed 3.
Honestly, I was too. After Creed 2, I was just like, where can they really go? Where can it go?
I was like, exactly. It was like, okay, so I guess this is like the end of the Creed series. Yeah. We only got 2 Creeds, like whatever. I was just like, I just didn't expect there to be another Creed movie. So whenever I was up in the theater and it was like Creed 3, I was like, what? Creed? I was clutching my pearls. But I'm so happy that there was a Creed 3. And going into it, but on the strength of the previews and everything, I had really high expectations for it. Right. Just in terms, let me rephrase that. I had high expectations in terms of I had high expectations because of Jonathan Majors. I'll say that. Oh, yeah. That was my expectations was Jonathan Majors, was seeing him in all of his goodness. But like, I'm just gonna be real. I'm just gonna take it. I'm just gonna take that. I'm just gonna be real. I was I'm a married.
This is who I want to see.
but yes, it's like that was who because I wasn't even really into Jonathan before that. But then I was like, I saw that I was like, I had to, like, a lot of my friends were like, "Ooh, Jonathan Majors! Oh my goodness, Jonathan Majors! He is so," and I was just like, "Hey, whatever. Like, I don't care. I don't got time for Jonathan Majors." But then I saw that Creed 3 preview, and I was like, "Okay, I got a little bit of time. I got a little bit. I got let me carve out 15 minutes for Mr. Majors here after I saw that preview. But I was very curious about where the story was going to go. I wasn't sure what story they had left to tell, but
Right.
it defied my expectations in that respect.
Yeah, absolutely. And another another big part of this of the build up of this movie was Michael B. Jordan directing it. Like when you have like a movie star like him who's been in so many like premiere films, has had a long history of even child acting. What were your kind of expectations for even what he was going to do with it? Because sometimes people can be skeptical of when an actor gets into that lane, but it really feels like he fell into it seamlessly and really kind of handled it perfectly.
Yeah, I was that was some of the part whenever it was like he was directing it, like he was producing and directing it. That was what I was skeptical of at first.
Hmm.
Now, definitely knowing his history in the industry is like I did wasn't expecting like, oh, this is gonna be horrible and terrible
Right.
or whatever. But sometimes like as an actor and then coming to a director, sometimes it takes people who have been on the other side of the lens, it takes time for their vision and stuff to mature.
Hmm.
From the anecdote, at least the anecdotal things that I often hear is that actors a lot of times make really good directors because they know what it's like to be on to be in front of the camera, and so
Right.
they're a little bit so they're usually actors are usually not always but usually good directors and stuff to work for. But I was very impressed with the maturity of his vision. And if you
Mhm.
had told me that this was his directorial debut, I would
I would
if
have
they
thought it
hadn't
was
have
like his
said
third
it,
or fourth. I wouldn't have
yeah,
thought it was his actual first.
if they hadn't have said like I was really skeptical about it. I was like, okay, but did he go to film school? Like
Mhm.
what like so like is this just his first is this his first, you know, kind of studio film or something like that? But his vision for this movie was very mature for somebody that, you know, obviously he's been in the industry and all of that,
Right.
but he just did very well. And then the fact that he and I actually asked him this. I had the opportunity to interview him and
Oh wow.
Jonathan Majors very briefly. We only
Mhm.
had it was a junket, it was a press junket, so it was only I only had about I think my interview recording was only like 12 minutes long or something like that. But I actually asked him what it was like directing himself, and he was saying that, you know, there's a lot more added responsibility to be an actor and the director. There's a lot more added responsibility of being the director. But honestly, you know, I think that Michael B. Jordan should direct himself in more movies.
He should.
You know, and that was something too that I felt like a lot of Adonis's a lot of his scenes like it didn't like the movie is about him. Adonis is in the movie, but it felt like he wasn't
Mm.
like in the movie as much. And you
Yeah.
would think like, you know, an actor would be like, oh, I'm being loved like every scene. But I think that he should direct himself a lot more. I think that his performance was so strong. He was able to bring a range
Mhm.
out in his acting that I have not previously seen before. And I'm not an extensive connoisseur of his work, but even just thinking about comparing him against the different Creed movies, I felt like that there was a little bit more depth that he was able to bring out in Adonis, and some
Yeah.
of that I couldn't help but wonder if that was the direction.
Mhm. Absolutely. And now getting to our first topic from 1 to 4 stars, what would you give it? I would go three with 3 stars because I feel as though there were nuanced performances from both Michael B. Jordan and Jonathan Majors, and just how it explores Adonis, the man as a father, son, husband, and brother, which is done exceptionally well. But to you, from 1 to 4 stars, what would be your particular rating for it?
Honestly, I would give it 5 stars. I would give it 5
Wow.
out of 4 stars. I thought and the reason for that is because of what I felt like this movie did.
Mm.
So, first of all, I feel like that Creed 3, excuse me. Well, I mean, I could say this of Creed 2, but it's even truer of Creed 3,
Mhm.
raises the bar for what franchise movies are.
Mm.
Like point blank and period. This movie, it felt like a beginning more than an ending. And that was something whenever I interviewed them, Michael said that it was a mix of a sequel and an origin story, and I felt that in the way that the movie was. And so it felt like Creed 3 is probably about the only movie in the entire Rocky franchise that you could watch and not have seen any of the other movies at all.
Have to.
You don't have to see any of the other movies. Does it give you more context for what's happening? Sure. Do you get some of the different little references and callbacks to the other movies? Absolutely. But I don't feel like you had to have seen any of the Creed movies or any of the other Rocky movies, for that matter, to understand what was happening in this movie. And so I really felt like that it raised the bar for franchise movies. Sometimes franchise movies get to a place, and I'm not talking just sequels, because I think that there's a difference between a sequel and a franchise movie.
Yeah.
Like a sequel is you're telling like the continuation of a story or whatever, you're going back, whatever. A franchise movie is there's a whole brand, there's a whole world, there's a whole thing that's kind of built within that.
Right.
And I think that the trouble with an issue that sequels and franchise movies share is that sometimes there gets to be a point where if they become overly self-referential, and so they become so self-referential that it's like it's like high school kids, like with like an inside joke, and it just keeps going and going and going, and it builds up on itself. And so then, like, if you aren't a high school kid who is in on the inside joke, you listen to hear like, what's happening?
Right.
What's the matter with your face? What's going on? Like, why is this like this? Right. And so sometimes I think that the trouble of sequels in both sequels and franchise movies is that they become overly self-referential. And then the other aspect that I think is an issue with franchise movies is that franchise movies constantly have to outdo themselves.
Yes.
Especially movies that are action movies, they constantly are having to outdo themselves. Like, I think I have not seen a single Fast and Furious movie.
Oh my
I remember whenever the Fast and Furious came out, I had a car. I started like driving whenever Fast and Furious came out, right around that time. And so I had like the type of car that, like, it was this 94 Honda Civic. Like, it wasn't that fancy, but I had like a lot of guys who would try like to buy my car from me because they wanted their car, they wanted to do like all the stuff like what they did on Fast and the Furious. I've not seen a single one of those movies. I only know it. I've again, like not nary a 1 in 10 have I seen, but I keep up with it because the previews in theaters, since they've been come back to theaters. There's a point with Fast and the Furious, I don't know, there's like 6 of them that didn't even come in, that was straight to video or whatever. But like, the gimmicks keep getting bigger. The action keeps getting bigger because it's got to outdo the last one. So don't get me, like, again, if you're a Fast fan, don't come for me. Like, don't try to check me. I'm not saying that your movies are bad. I'm just saying that, like, franchise movies have to continually try to outdo themselves.
Right.
And Creed 3 avoids that. It's not trying to outdo itself. It's not an issue with sports movies, and an issue with the Rocky franchise in particular is that Rocky 1 through 5, and then Rocky Balboa, because there's 6 Rocky movies, except for they didn't have Rocky 6. They just called Rocky 6.
Rocky Balboa. That was
Rocky Balboa. a lot of people forget, but they keep on contriving reasons for Rocky to fight somebody.
Right.
And so they keep contriving reasons for Rocky to fight somebody. And there gets to be a point, honestly, like at Rocky 4, the original cut of Rocky 4. Now, the recut that Sylvester Stallone did of Rocky 4 that he released, I think it was in 2020 for like the 35th anniversary for it. Now, that is a much better movie. That, for me, that is the real Rocky 4. That movie is so much better than the original Rocky 4. I could have a whole like dissertation and analysis of Rocky 4, because the original Rocky 4, I guess what would probably be like the canonical Rocky 4, is horrible, is actually my least favorite of the franchise. I think that Rocky 5 gets a very bad rap. It gets a bad rap. Rocky 4
is very popular. It might be the most
Rocky
popular.
4, everybody loves Rocky 4 is probably the most popular one.
It honestly might be the most popular one.
And like I always make people mad with this because I'm like, this is horrible. This is Cold War propaganda. I understand, like, because I was born the year that Rocky 4 came out in 1985. I was born in that year. So I have memory of the Cold War. I remember the Berlin Wall coming down. Now I didn't understand what any of that meant, like in the world, but I knew. But I remember the Cold War. I remember Ronald Reagan. I remember Mikhail Gorbachev. Like I remember I have memory of all this stuff, but it didn't mean to me the same way. I have a sister who's 12 years older than me, who's a Gen Xer, and that was like, so I have a lot of Gen X stuff because of my sister, who was in middle school and high school whenever I was growing up. And I get it. I understand why it's a thing for folks, but bro, that movie, the original one is it's so bad. Like I'm like, y'all need to give Rocky 5 a chance. Like I understand. Yes, it's super contrived. There's things that
It's almost like
problems.
Godfather 3. It's almost like Godfather. The original Godfather 3 is not that good, but the recut version is way better.
Yes,
and I watched it over Christmas break. Way better.
Yes, it's the exact thing. And what Rocky 5 suffers from is I think Rocky 5 suffers from it did not probably have the budget that it needed to have. And then it also suffers from the fact that it was released in 1990.
Yeah.
And I feel like that movies, so and actually this is also the problem with Rocky 4, that there's like an issue with, because Rocky 3 has it a little bit, where you get into like the 80s and like the 80s and early 90s, like movies were just really, really, even movies that were trying to be serious were just like really kind of campy in a way. It's like it just like movies just could not be serious. Like there are a few movies that really they had to be like dramas, like whatever, but there was just something about that time that a lot of kind of like your general market movies just really were, like a lot of your stuff that wasn't like R-rated stuff, so like a lot of your PG movies, even like your PG-13 movies, were just decent storylines maybe, but just were campy in a way that just doesn't hold up. It for whatever reason it doesn't hold up to today's. It did not age well. But Rocky 5's problem is that it was made in 1990 when it probably should have been. It probably would have done better if it was made even like 3 or 4 years later. So it suffered from probably not enough budget, poor writing. They were just trying to shamelessly like have another sequel, have another way, because also that was the same time period where the Godfather 3 came out. They came out, I think Godfather 3 was like 1990 or 1991. Might have been 1990 actually.
90,
still, it was Godfather 3 was 1990. And so I think that there was this whole like, trying to revisit, try to remake and whatever, but I'm saying way too many words about that. But I think that it suffers, that the franchise suffers from trying to constantly outdo itself and constantly trying to contrive reasons for Rocky Balboa to fight people, where Creed did Creed 3 especially, because I mean the whole storyline is like Adonis is older, he's retired, he's whatever, and so Creed 3 just he becomes a promoter. He's training people. He's running Delphi Gym. They completely defied that, and like yes, he gets in the ring, and we could maybe say, well, is some of that contrived? But I don't think it is. I think it's like he's like his fight with Dame it's not about him getting a title, it's not about him whatever, it's literally like this dude is being self-destructive, he's trying to destroy me, he's whatever, and so the only thing that he's gonna hear is if I get in this ring with him.
It was a respect. It was more of a respect fight than
it was more of like a respect thing than we're trying to make Adonis Creed the champion. Like that was like, and I felt like that it even, like I'm saying like so much stuff about this, but I'm so like overly analytical about this. But like I feel like that, to not to make the comparison, but to me, Creed 3 in some ways is a good analog to Rocky 1, in that the original Rocky, the outcome of the fight didn't actually matter. Rocky loses. the
Yeah,
first
it does.
the first fight. The whole thing was it was a moral victory.
Right.
Rocky went the distance with Apollo Creed, and that was it. That's all he wanted to do, was to go the distance. He wanted to impress Adrian. That was so, like, the whole thing, he's Adrian. They're announcing the thing, Apollo's out there like, yeah, he won by split decision. That's not where the focus of the ending was. The focus of the ending was that he had gone the distance.
Mhm.
So I think that Creed 3 is a moral victory in that, in a similar way, where we're not caring about Adonis reclaiming the championship title from Dame.
Mhm.
We're not like, that's not what it
Yeah, that's
is.
not the point.
It's about these two men that have this history,
Mhm.
and so they are fighting one another, but really they're fighting themselves, and they're fighting the younger version of the
Yeah.
other person. And so who wins at the end really doesn't matter, because what is actually creating between them is, like you said earlier, like that respect
Mhm.
is about that respect. It's about that you got your thing that you wanted. You got to become champion, but then we also got to work out this thing between the two of us. And then also Adonis's, which I guess is also still Apollo's legacy with his daughter,
Yeah.
her being in the ring, like at the end, and they're fighting, and they're whatever.
Yeah.
That is the scene where
That could become another franchise within it, because people are
that, oh my
speculating
goodness, I
that
hope it
could
does.
become
I hope
another
it
franchise.
does. I want the Amara movie.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I want the Amara Creed
Mhm.
saga. Give me at least 3 of them movies,
Yeah.
because that baby was on point. I loved
She
her.
was ready.
She was probably she was my favorite part of the whole movie. I loved her. That baby, that actress, she was really good. But that relationship between Apollo and his daughter, or excuse me, Adonis and his
Yeah.
daughter, and at the end, they in the ring and they fight and stuff. To me, that is Adonis's, like, his Adrian scene
Mm.
of like this is where the victory is. It's not like the bell is whatever. This is the thing.
The
And so
Creed
that was
3
really what I love.
the Creed 3 and Rocky 1 parallels are really there. There's a lot of parallels between those two movies. And now getting into a favorite character, I would go with Damien, because this was a character that was really chasing a possession of power that he had been dreaming of for years, and the performance was just so precise and controlled in totality. Damien, he was uninterested in convention and just really on just uh, the different and unique about getting his way to the title. But to you, who was your overall favorite character in this movie?
Man, I think it was the baby. Like I said, I think it was Amara. I think it's her name. I really liked how they foregrounded her in her journey
Hmm.
as being a deaf child, and dealing with things that we maybe all have dealt with at certain points, dealing with bullying. She goes to the school for the deaf. She's being bullied by a fellow deaf classmate,
Right.
and so she's having to navigate that. And then she's got that creed in her,
You got that
where
fighter.
she like her daddy. She like her daddy. She get it from her daddy. She want to fight everybody. She wants to use her fist
Yeah.
instead of working through her emotions, and then kind of what that also means for Adonis as a parent, what that's doing with Bianca. And then I guess my second favorite character, with that, I would also have to say Bianca, because
Mm.
Bianca does the whole black woman thing of like getting her man in line, like he's acted a fool,
Yeah.
and she's like, I know that you're not acting like this. And I've love Tessa Thompson, and
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, and that's another character like Tessa Thompson. She's had an evolution within the Creed series, because from the first one, her and Adonis formed a later connection. In the second one, like, the hearing issues became a bigger deal. Like, what are your thoughts on how she's evolved in this Creed series, and just what she's been able to do throughout each film?
Yeah, so like I said, I love Tessa, and if there's anything that I would critique this film series about, is the thing that I think that it's like Rocky in, that I think is a negative, is that it underutilizes the women.
Mm.
It does better. The Creed franchise does a lot better, like, with Felicia Rashad, with
Right.
Tessa Thompson, utilizing them. but it still really feels like a boys' club, a little bit. And so, and I hope that with the introduction of the child, that they'll be able to break some of that a little bit and really have like, a fighting movie, a boxing movie about a woman, about a young
Yeah.
woman or whatever. But I think that I really love the character of Bianca, and I really what little we get of her, what I feel like is comparably little that we get of her. Um, I really like the evolution and the depth and the nuance to which Tessa Thompson plays her.
Mhm.
And she's very good, and it's no shade on her. I think it would have been interesting for them to get a deaf actress, for them to get someone who had the same
Right.
condition. Because as far as I know, I don't think that is Tessa Thompson. Like I'm pretty sure that
Yeah.
she doesn't
No.
have hearing loss. So I wish that they would have gotten like a hard of hearing actress, or
Mhm.
I can understand where it might have been difficult to get a deaf actress
Mhm.
to be able to play, because it's a progressive hearing loss, so they might not have been able to have a deaf actress play that, but somebody who is hard of hearing, or somebody who has the same condition or has a similar condition. I would have liked to have seen that, but I think that just seeing that actress really take a role that could have just been very superfluous, could have just been,
Mhm.
this is the girlfriend, this is the baby mama, this is, the wife or whatever. And really she could have just been kind of background or whatever.
Yeah.
Thompson really gives her a depth, and the chemistry that she has with Michael B. Jordan, it really gives that character a depth
Mhm.
that I don't think that many actresses would have been able to pull off, and to have the depth where you feel like, even though she's on screen very little, you feel like
Mhm.
that character. You feel like she's somebody that you know and that you're rooting for and
Yeah.
rocking with.
Yeah, absolutely. And now getting into most memorable scenes, I had Adonis and Damien's first meeting. Also, Damien fights 30 in sparring. Damien trying to convince Adonis to take a chance on him as an underdog. The Damien and Lopez title fight. Also, Adonis confronting Damien. Adonis and Bianca's argument. Marianne's death, and then finally Adonis and Damien's ending fight. And one of the scenes in the Adonis and Damien fight, and I think it was in that second or third round, when they like take the crowd out and they're just it's just
Mhm.
him and Adonis like
Yeah.
with the bars. I felt like that was
Mhm.
very symbolic of just it wasn't a regular fight. It was more so of a
Yeah.
symbolic fight as well of their past and what
Mhm.
they were going through. To you, what were some of your memorable scenes in this film overall, or maybe some of the standouts?
So yeah, that scene where they're fighting, they're at Dodger Stadium and they're
Yeah.
fighting, and then the crowd drops out, and it's just the two of them. It's like the second or third round, they're fighting, and you get maybe 5 minutes, 5-7 minutes of just them fighting, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden, boom, you're
Like in the
in
12th
the
round.
11th round. Like it's like
You don't even know what
it's
happened.
done. It's like the fight is almost over.
Yeah.
That scene was so beautifully shot. I thought, and I feel like that Creed, definitely, like, with some of the boxing and that type of stuff, is very different than the Rock. The shots and everything are very different
Mhm.
than the Rocky franchise. So you get a lot of shots where, so like Rocky, you're getting a lot of like wide shots of the actors in the ring fighting one another.
Right.
You're getting a lot of close ups of impact and stuff. Creed does a lot of kind of perspective shots where you're seeing the camera's tight on the person, usually on Adonis that's fighting, and
Mhm.
he's punching, and the camera is very static, is
Yeah.
very and it's a very kind of smooth, kind of fluid thing. And then you maybe get some scenes that it pans to somebody else, but the action and stuff is I always felt like that in the first two movies, that was like just a really groundbreaking way. And then also some of the slow frame rate where they get punched, and so then of course you see like the lips moving,
Yeah.
and like the sweat and the spit, like that sort of that really high frame rate type of thing.
Mhm.
This took it to like that scene just took it to a whole different level, where it almost, I've seen, I think people have compared it to like anime. Like to me it feels almost like a comic book in some ways, where, and it's not comic book as in like campy, it's not comic book as in like, you know, like you're seeing like pow and bang and that type of stuff, but just very much, it's very focused on the action of them fighting. And it was so beautifully shot. Like I really expected them. I expected them to start flying. Like I expected
honestly, at that, yeah,
that was how that, like it took a lot of things, even just like from like comic book movies, just the way that the action was done, and it was just shot so beautiful. I love that. And then there's also a scene where during Dame's fight, whenever Dame fights El Tigre, and so Adonis goes into the locker room and he's talking to Dame, and he's whatever, you know, and they're doing kind of what they had done like whenever they were kids. And so then there's a scene where, so there's a part where Adonis is walking out, getting ready to walk out of the room, and
stop.
Dame is standing up, and so they stop, and so then the screen is split, and you've got green on one side and yellow, like the backlight, they're kind of backlit. You got green on one side and yellow on the other side, and they are looking at each other, but there's a wall there, so they're looking at the wall, but they're looking at each other. Again, that felt very comic book. That felt very like very much like a comic book, like a frame that would have been taken out of a comic book, whatever, like that. I really liked that shot. And then also the scenes with the young actors, the flashback scenes that we got of young Adonis and young Damian. The opening scene, and then some of those scenes just with those young actors. Those young actors were incredible. You know, those young men who played the younger versions of them were very well cast. And I felt that way about the first movie, the little Adonis that we get in the first scene. They've always done a good job of casting young actors for this franchise. So those were some of my most kind of memorable scenes out of the thing.
Yeah, definitely. We're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show, and now we're getting to the second half of our topics. And to start with the most memorable quotes I had, I'm going to get there one day. I'm going to get there. Also, it's not only about power, it's time, it's speed. Be careful what you wish for. I left boxing, but boxing didn't leave me. Also, he got it the hard way. He earned it. And he's telling you who he is. Believe him. Also, I'm coming for it all. And then finally, you know where to find me if you need me. To you, what were the memorable quotes in this one for you? And maybe some of the ones that kind of like, you know, resonated the most with you?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm always so bad at like thinking about like what quotes
I think you said
are
that for the
like.
last review you're on.
Yeah, and I should have known. Like I should have been like I needed to have been like, okay, let me think about quotes, because I also like, you know, wrote reviews and stuff for. I'm like, man, I should have like thought about some quotes. Let me think about this. I think more of it in like just in terms of scenes, and it was a scene that he had with his mom, with Felicia Rashad, and she's talking to him, and you're showing him all the stuff, like all the letters and stuff that she had kept from him, and just like their exchange and stuff between the exchange between the two of them during that scene. Of course, you know, he said Donna said some things that he regretted, but just like that for me, what resonated for me in that particular scene, and I wish I could remember like what she said, but it was this whole thing of like, she essentially was like she peeped game on Dame, like she's, you know, she saw what he was saying to Adonis, and was just sort of like, I'm like, you know, I'm keeping this from me, she felt like she was trying to protect him, like she was trying to protect him and protect his future, and to keep him from feeling like he owed Dame something. And I felt like that was just like that wisdom that Black mothers often give, or Black aunties, black grandmothers, that sort of thing of, you know, and sometimes they make decisions like that for us.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and I've had that in my own life where decisions were made for me, and they weren't the best, and it wasn't the best decision. It wasn't the best decision, to say, oh well, maybe like I'm going to keep from you, that this thing is happening, that this thing that's like really important to your life is
Yeah.
going on. So there's kind of like that double side to that, because in another way, like, Apollo, or excuse me, I keep on wanting to call him Apollo, Adonis. I keep on wanting to call him Apollo for whatever reason. I know he's not Apollo, but Adonis. I think that there's that just that whole like interplay of a mother like trying to protect her son, trying to ensure her son's future, but then also somewhat there being a misstep in there, because if Donnie had that information, if he had those letters, he might have interacted with Dame differently. He might have
Yeah.
seen Dame differently
Different life.
if he had those things, if he had that interaction. But just like that whole interplay of the two of them going back and forth about Dame and about the past and about the future and all that other type of stuff. That was something that really profoundly stuck out to me. But also the quotes that you said, the because I believe it was Lil Duke that said that he's showing you who he
Yeah,
is.
I thought that was
It
a
was
huge. I thought that was a
that
huge, yeah, huge quote. Because
that
I
was a
mean,
huge
like,
moment.
yeah, really, really huge moment. Because Adonis, he kind of had the blinders on when it came to Damien. There were moments where he just didn't want to believe that this was a guy who was coming in the wrong way, coming in a forceful way. He already wanted a title fight from the moment that he talked to
Mhm.
him, and Adonis told him like that's just not how it works. Like there's a natural progression, and you're gonna have to
Mhm.
learn the hard way. But another question I had was, especially with what we saw, what we've seen this year, honestly, with Jonathan Majors, even in the Ant-Man movie, and then now with this film, like, what are your thoughts on his progression as an actor, and just what else is for him? Because he's also going to be in a upcoming Spike Lee film, and it seems like he's really in a zone of just getting more opportunities, and even just more chances with elite actors and directors.
Yeah, you know what? I really love that for him. Um, whenever I interviewed him, he really seems like a very sensitive, introverted. They both were just I was surprised at how down to earth they both were.
Mm,
Like, I mean, it easily could be just like, oh, these are dudes that I could just, be kicking it with or whatever. But I really hope that he is able to preserve that of himself. And he never struck me as like the type of person, because whenever I interviewed him, I like asked him about, like the ebony shoot, like whatever, and he was just really just kind of, demure or whatever
mm,
about it. Like Michael was, catcalled him and like whatever, he was just really just sort of like, yeah, like I don't even really think about stuff like that, because I told him, whenever I went to go screen Creed 3, the theater that I was at, that I whenever I came up the escalator, there was a big Creed 3 poster. So it was him as Dame.
mm,
Then facing it, like on the other side, there's a poster of Kang.
mm.
Then there's Adonis, and then there's Kang, and like
Yeah,
it
it's
was just it
everywhere.
was he was everywhere. And then of course that was during like whenever the Ebony shoot was first coming out.
Yeah,
So it was like literally I was seeing him everywhere.
his
And he
moment.
really just seemed to be like untouched and kind of unfazed by it. Just kind of, it was sort of like, I don't even really think about it like that. I'm not really thinking about competing with myself. So I really hope that he's able to keep that purity and stuff about him, that, and not to say that he would all of a sudden become like haughty and big headed or like whatever, but just being able to stay, keep up with those caliber of roles, and keeping up with just who he is, because I think that that's
Yeah.
more than him winning like Oscars, more than him winning Golden Globes and awards and accolades.
Mm,
Really just being able to see him have him, and really any black actor just being able to have a full career,
right.
and being able to experience a range stuff. So, not being typecast, always being typecast as like the muscle or like the this or the heavy or whatever, but really being able to see him because he really you can tell that this is like an art for him.
Oh yeah.
And so, something that he said in our interview that I thought was really great, because something that whenever he was responding to my like, oh my gosh, you're everywhere type of thing, is that he was like, it's not very often that whenever we do these things that both of those guys that like the characters that he creates, that they get to be in the world at the same time. He's like, sometimes one guy is on his way out the door while the other one is coming in, and so it's very rare that they're in the same
Concurrently
place
existing.
at the same time. And so for him, he really sees like these characters or whatever, there's something that brings healing to him in being able to getting healing by playing whatever healing that the character has to offer, getting that healing from the character, and then letting them go. But then they're also kind of like that character, like Dame or Kang or whatever. It's like a friend. It's like somebody that they know that's out there in the
Right.
world, and people are talking about them. And so he just really seems to approach his acting with a level of artistry and with a level of thought. And I really just hope that he's able, that the Hollywood thing doesn't become the Hollywood thing like it does for
Yeah.
some
A
actors.
lot of
Like
actors fall into that.
for a lot of actors, it just becomes the Hollywood thing, and it's like, cool, I'm just gonna play the same role forever, and I'm gonna constantly be
Keep
the
collecting those
same.
checks.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep taking in them checks. Like, I mean, and no shade on The Rock at all, but The Rock, he
That's what we were
found
mentioning.
the Rock, Vin Diesel, they have found their
Yep,
character. They
and
have
they're
found
comfortable.
who they're gonna play. They're comfortable, and you know what? The Rock money is long. Vin Diesel money long.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not shading them for that, but and I'm not even shading their acting or whatever in that.
Right.
But I really hope that for Jonathan, that he's really able to like get those just really good challenging
Mm.
roles and stuff. And it's been so great. Just it feels like because I hadn't really known much about him really. I think I became aware of him, and I haven't watched this yet. People are going to take my black card, but Lovecraft Country was
Oh yeah.
where I had really started to hear about him. I haven't actually watched it. I hadn't actually watched it yet. I guess now the series is over, I can watch it, but it came out at a time where I wasn't able to watch a whole lot of new shows, so I wasn't able to really get into it.
Mhm.
But he seems like, I think by a lot of outside standards, oh, he's just like this really quick rising star. But I know that he's been at it, for a minute, and so
Oh yeah. He's
I
been
really hope that really pays off for him, because I think that for Michael B. Jordan, it's really been paying off. I mean, he was a child actor,
Mhm.
and he was able to make that transition from child actor to a young adult to an adult actor, and was able to do that, I think, relatively, like,
Seamlessly. Yeah.
without a lot of drama, without a whole lot of other stuff. And so I really hope that he also that Jonathan also gets those opportunities to really build into. I hope that we see him in stuff that in 10 years we're like, oh my gosh, the guy where it's like, wow, the dude who played Kang and who played
And Creed 3.
Dame in Creed 3,
You just gonna
and
play
who
that?
played what was he called, the one who remains, the guy who played that
Mm.
is also playing like some other like crazy role, and people are like, what, like that's the
Mhm.
same guy, like that sort of thing,
Yeah.
where you're like, wait a minute, that hold up, that's the same dude, he played that guy and he played this, what, like
Mhm.
I hope that we see that
Oh yeah.
out of him.
Absolutely. And now getting to kind of like what did you like the most about this storyline? To me, how bringing in a brother like close friend of Adonis's, and making the title fight not just one of opposition, but of deep rooted venom and a long history. I thought was a really interesting element of this storyline. To you, what particular element of the storyline did you kind of like the most?
I really liked seeing Adonis as like a family man
Yeah.
and really thriving in that role. Like there's a scene toward the beginning when like he's asleep and his kid comes in and is all like, poking. I overstand that. I've got two kids. I overstand that. But then like, she's begging him to do something and then he goes and then the next thing you see he's like dressed
Tea
up in
party.
like a dinosaur like onesie pajama thing and is having a tea party. And I love that. I loved that. I loved being able to see fatherhood and particularly like Black fatherhood portrayed in such a way that it felt real. It felt authentic. Like I think about my husband playing like My Little Pony with my daughters and stuff, and he never makes them feel like the things that they're asking of him that he's too manly or too whatever to do those things. If they want to put barrettes in his hair, then okay, he's gonna sit there and he's gonna sit there and okay, they're gonna style his hair, they're gonna put barrettes in his hair, he's gonna go and he's gonna play My Little Pony Monopoly with them, and okay, they want him to paint their fingernails, so he's going to sit and help them paint their little fingernails or whatever. And so being able to see that and be able to see a Black man doing that on the big screen, I thought that element of the movie was so important.
Yeah, definitely. And before we get to our last topic, the the conversation around Sylvester Stallone not being in this film, and obviously that being so different for them because he was in the first two as Adonis's trainer. Like I almost feel as though it was a necessary progression for Michael
Hmm.
B. Jordan and this character to kind of like show that he can stand alone without him, because that was a big looming shadow in the first film and even the second one when you still have
Hmm.
Sylvester Stallone and that Rocky influence. To you, what were your thoughts on Sylvester Stallone like not being in this one and that kind of like being a huge shift from what we're used to seeing in the series?
I didn't miss him at all. And I think I agree with what you said, is like I think that it's sort of a natural progression
Mm,
that Adonis would come from underneath Rocky, would come like that he's doing his own thing. Rocky's in Philly. Rocky's got his gym. He's got his whatever. And then of course Adonis, he's from LA. It would be natural that he would be part of the Delphi gym in some sort of way. So I mean, I didn't miss him in this movie. Now, if there's a Creed 4, if there's a Creed 5, is there a point where maybe we get an update on Rocky?
I think it would
Maybe where
probably
we
happen. Yeah, it probably would
where we
happen.
hear like whether it's Rocky has passed away, or whether it's Rocky's with his son in Seattle or whatever it is. I think that this movie, it was necessary for this movie for like Rocky to not even I mean, I feel like that the most of Rocky really that we even got was the connection was Drago showing
Yeah.
uh it's not Ivan, what's his name?
Um.
I can't think of it. I can't think of it. But Drago Victor.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
I kept on wanting to jump out with Ivan, and I'm like, no, that's the daddy, Victor Drago. I loved how they incorporated Victor Drago
Mhm.
in this movie.
Yeah.
I love that because I loved that storyline. Like as much as I hated the original Rocky 4, I loved the storyline of the Dragos in Creed 2,
Mhm.
and I feel like that Creed 2 even kind of maybe redeemed a little bit of Rocky 4 for me, but I love that they didn't just say that they just didn't say like, oh, okay, Drago, like okay, that was like a thing, but they brought him back in.
Yeah.
Creed's dude is gonna fight Drago, then Drago gets hurt, and then Creed like trains with like whenever Creed trained with
Right.
Drago,
Yeah.
I was like, duh, he's in there training with Drago. Oh my gosh. Like I love that. And then because I don't really follow like I don't follow professional. I used to follow professional boxing, like whenever I was like young, because anytime anybody was fighting at my house, like we was watching the fights. Like we were watching Mike Tyson, we were watching George Foreman, we were watching Evander Holyfield. Like that was like an event in my house. But I haven't followed professional boxing in a while, and then especially like women's boxing. But I know that the woman trainer uh that Creed had, I'm pretty sure she's an actual like pro boxer,
Yeah.
was an actual pro boxer. I loved that they had a woman training him. I loved that. But whenever old boy rolled up and he was fighting Drago again, I was like, and Drago was giving him the stuff. I was like, yes, this is wonderful. So I loved that element. So Rocky was there in spirit,
Yeah,
because there was the spirit of Drago, and then of course the spirit of Rocky is there because we're talking about Apollo still. So like, you know, that movie, there was still conversation and stuff about Apollo. And so I think that Sylvester Stallone like not being in the movie, it didn't hurt the movie, but I felt like it allowed Rocky to be there in some ways in spirit, but to not actually like be there like taking up space in the movie, and this really truly being about Creed. Because the other movies were like, they were about Creed, but they were also about Rocky.
Yeah.
This is Creed.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all we got is Creed. And I really appreciated that.
Definitely. And now getting to our next topic, we always do this 10 years from now. Like, do you still think this will be watchable and intriguing? And obviously, with it just coming out, a lot of people are gonna have thoughts on how it will age. I definitely think with just the nuance of showing the father that Adonis has become, the evolved husband, and just like what he's having to do in the next phase of his career, channeling that, and then bringing Damian in, and kind of fighting his past demons was something that I think is really going to be interesting to watch years from now. But how do you think this movie will age another decade from now?
Oh, I think that this movie will age really well. I think that it deals with a lot of these different topics, with incarceration,
Yep.
with all that other type of stuff. It deals with those things in a way that is sensitive, but isn't also heavy-handed, to the point where, you know, some of the stuff that they could say, you know, now, like there are moments where we could say, okay, well, maybe this was a missed opportunity. They really could have talked about mass incarceration a lot more. They could have talked about like some of the unfairness. But then I think that would have had a potential to potentially age the movie, if we're looking at it, you know, say 20 years later, and different things with mass incarceration maybe change or maybe get worse, or even just like even just like around language, like the language we use and stuff, about those realities might shift, and so that would date it. So I think that the themes are pretty timeless. The themes of redemption, the themes of where you come from, and your past, and animosity toward bad blood, like that type of thing. Those are timeless themes.
Right. Definitely. And I had a couple of bonus questions. Obviously, like with this Creed film, where do you think it ranks among the other Creed films? Because to me, I like the first one is still a very influential, one of the best sports movie I've seen. I think with what Ryan Coogler did, shifting into a different story with Apollo's son was really phenomenal. The second one is probably like my least favorite out of all the Creed films. I think Creed and Creed 3 are the top ones. But to you, where would you rank this among the other Creed films?
Ooh, oh my goodness. So something that I didn't say earlier is that I also think that Creed 3 really kind of redefines what sports movies are, like,
Yes,
and what
in a
sports
major
movies
way.
can be. I think that it really ups the ante for like, I think that we're gonna see a lot of sports movies start coming off like superhero movies, like, and not superhero movies like in the way that, like, oh, you know, action and stuff is like, oh, these people are superhuman, but just like some of that comic book type
More
stuff,
like
that
anime
anime,
influence. Yeah.
that anime influence for some of the action. Like I think that I think that Creed 3 is gonna start a trend of that. But as far as it ranks among the Creed movies, you know, that's really hard, because I feel like that all three of the movies are really strong. And honestly, probably I would say that for me, Creed 1 probably ranks at the bottom of the Creed movies.
Really?
And I'm saying
Wow.
that, but that's like hard to say. That's like it's like if I had to choose, I would be like, if I had to choose, I was like, okay, what's the weak link? Okay, Creed 1. Like I would have to say, because I just really felt like that this movie was so strong. And then the story of Creed 2, like, I mean, again, it's Drago. It's this whole, it's the whole thing. It's the whole, you know, he's trying to impress his wife, and he trying to impress his mama, and she don't care unless he winning. And then, Adonis is in there trying to avenge his daddy and trying to not be like his daddy, and the whole throwing in the towel thing, and like throw in the towel, and then like so, like from Rocky 4, and then that comes in, and so then somebody finally like throws in the towel, and there's like all this respect between Rocky and Ivan Drago, and like there's just all this stuff. And so it's like it hits like so many things for me that I'm like, I can't be like, this is the worst one.
Yeah.
It checks the boxes. I can't be like, oh, this is the worst one. So I don't know. That's like hard. But I guess if I had to rank them, I would rank them like 3, 2, 1, like that. And that's hard. That's very hard. I don't feel like that
Creed
question
1
was
at the
fairly
bottom.
answered.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, it's not. But like the bottom isn't the bottom.
Yeah.
Like it's not saying that this is like, it's not the bottom.
Right.
It's just like, if you are forced to rank them, what would you rank them as? And that's just the one that I would have to be like, okay, that one's got that one. Like if it's like one's got to go, okay, I guess it's Creed 1. But like I don't really want Creed 1 to go, right? Like it's like that.
You definitely don't want that to go. And to close it out, also I had top 3 favorite Rocky movies. I'd go with the first one, Rocky 3, number 2. I think that one is, I think Mr. T had a phenomenal villain role in that, and that's a highly rewatchable one. And then Rocky 2 as the last one. I think that one, bringing the sequel with Rocky and Apollo was really intriguing. I don't think it had the same strong elements as the first one, but I do think it was a good sequel. What would be your kind of top 3 favorite Rocky movies?
Oh my goodness, you asking the hard questions.
Last one.
So first, you asking the hard question. So first of all, I have a philosophy about the Rocky movies. So first of all, I don't think that you can fairly compare any of the sequels, but especially 3 through 5 and Rocky Balboa. I don't think that you can compare those to Rocky, because the original Rocky, it was probably one of the last like golden age of cinema movies ever created. Like it feels very much like a golden age of cinema movie. It has like a lot of the storytelling conventions, a lot of just the way that it was shot. And so because I think that some even film scholars, I kind of put some of the golden age. I think Rocky 2 came out in like 76. It references the bicentennial, so it was either 76 or 77. I can't remember if it was one of those that was shot before it came out, and the year and where they set it or whatever. So anyway, but I think that it kind of was like one of the last golden age, truly kind of golden age movies. So I just don't think that we can fairly compare it. Rocky 2 is kind of this bridge between, still feels like a golden age movie, but it also still feels, it starts to feel a little bit like a movie like what we sort of started to go into the 80s. Whenever you get to Rocky 3, the story, Rocky 3, Rocky 4, and Rocky 5, the storytelling is so different. That Rocky 3 feels so much like an 80s movie, that it's so very different. So all of it to say that, like, I feel like that Rocky kind of stands by itself, and like you can't really rank or compare it because it's so different, and it's so different from all the other movies, and it's so different from anything else that it's really hard to compare it. My personal favorite out of all of the Rocky franchise movies, my personal favorite is Rocky 3. I really like the storyline. I really like Clubber Lang. I feel like that Dame has a lot. It's very similar to Clubber Lang.
Yeah.
There are similarities there to Clubber Lang. But 3 is my personal favorite. I like the story of that basically Rocky's like this dude that like, you know, he's won, he's done all the thing, he's living at the top of the world, and then something comes along that like he actually has to fight and actually has to win for. And I love the interplay, like the evolution of Rocky and Apollo's relationship in that. I feel like that's the best movie of that really plays that friendship. So that's my top Rocky movie. Of course, like Rocky is like that just is inevitable, but I'm not going to count that because I feel like it's a different movie. So Rocky 3 is my favorite. Is my favorite. I would rank Rocky 2 as second, and then I would probably
Don't say Rocky.
I'm not gonna say Rocky 5. I'm not gonna say Rocky 5, even though like y'all got to get up off that movie's head, because Rocky don't criticize Rocky 4, whatever Rocky 5, whatever Rocky 4, the original Rocky 4 is right there. but my third favorite is the recut of Rocky 4. Because that's again, like if you haven't seen it, you've got to see it. It does. Sylvester Stallone did for that what Coppola did for Godfather 3. And actually, just an aside, I'm pretty sure that Coppola has actually kind of scrubbed the original Godfather 3. It's not available anywhere for streaming. You can only see Coda. That's the only one that you can watch anymore. Probably rightly so, but that's another. Godfather's another. One day we have to talk about Godfather. I love the Godfather.
We haven't even done the third one. You're definitely gonna be on for that one.
yeah. Like so I love the Godfather. Also, but anyway, so I would say my third favorite is the recut of Rocky 4, but then also Rocky 5 is my third favorite one. So y'all are just gonna have to deal with that, because that movie is not nearly as bad as y'all want it to be.
She's a Rocky 5 fan, not me.
I'm not a Rocky 5 fan. I'm not a Rocky 5 fan. I just hate the original Rocky 4 that much. Like that's it's not even about it's not about liking Rocky 5. It's about hating the original Rocky 4. Like that's really what it's about. But then like putting Creed in there, Lord, like I can't. It's like choosing my children. I put Creed 3 up next to, like, if you're gonna say these boxing movies, not even like the world, but just like these movies that are what they are. I feel like that Creed 3 is up there. Is not far behind the original Rocky in what it does. I mean, Creed 3 doesn't exist without the original Rocky movie or the rest of the franchise, but I put Creed 3 up there with Rocky 1. I would put Creed 2. I would say like Rocky, the original Rocky, and Creed 3, like I would kind of put those because those are so different than the other movies in the franchise. And I feel like that they're franchise defining, that you really can't compare them to the other ones.
Right.
But then Creed 2, for me, is next to Rocky 3. Creed 1 is next to the recut. It's above the recut of Rocky 4. The recut of Rocky 4, Rocky 5, and then the rest of them. Rocky 2, Rocky 2's in there. Rocky 2 is probably below Creed 1, but I don't know.
Man, these rankings are complex.
These rankings are hard. It's complex.
When you combine the Rocky and Creed films together, it gets really complex.
It gets complex. It gets complex. I mean, it's like, are you rating originals, rating sequels against one another, ratings the sequels of the sequels? I actually like Rocky Balboa except for the end. Like, I think that the fight is ignorant. I actually like Rocky Balboa. I just think that the fight is contrived.
Yeah, the fight
the fight is completely just pointless or whatever. He's 100 years old, and you have him in here.
It's
and then it was like the dude like hurt his arm or something like that. So then like the guy has like he hurt some like appendage or something like that. Yeah. So the dude isn't even fighting at like 100%, and it's like they could have just kept that. But I like the story. I like the evolution of being able to see Rocky, because one thing that I think that Rocky 5 did that I didn't like that Rocky 5. I liked the whole kind of he's this superhero, and then he doesn't fall from grace, but he loses all of his money, and he's got like all these injuries and that type of stuff. But I felt like that they shouldn't have had him fall like quite as hard, like financially. I think that they should have left him with a little bit of something. But I like that Rocky Balboa keeps him in his old neighborhood in Philly, in North Philly, and then also gives him where he does, like you see like in the 16 years since Rocky 5, he does find a way to get back on his feet. Is he as rich as he was before whenever he was fighting? No, but like he's living in some sort of like modest type of thing, and so it feels less bad. It feels less worse than like, oh, you're just poor, and you've got this thing that you're not even supposed to be able to fight anymore, and like whatever. And that Rocky 5 leaves him out. I didn't like that part. But anyway, yeah. So Rocky Balboa doesn't
there are rankings.
Doesn't get it. There are rankings. So like Rocky Balboa, these more shine, except for the fight. Cut the fight out. Yeah, but the rest of it, the whole fight could have gone.
Yeah. Well, Ally, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on for this review, and thank you so much for being gracious with your time.
Yeah. It was. Whenever you messaged me, I was like, oh yes, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about Creed 3. Oh yes, I want to talk about Rocky. Oh yes. Yeah. But yeah, whenever y'all talk about Godfather 3,
oh yes,
like,
that's coming.
I want to be there.
Absolutely.
Talk about Godfather 3.
Definitely. Well, that wraps it up for tonight. I'm your host, Wellington Burns. This has been Full Scope. See you later.